Alright guys, welcome back to VALORANT News. The VCT season is just about to get underway, but potentially bad news for Sentinels, with rumour has it that Johnqt, among other players around the world of VALORANT, not getting their visas in time. TenZ says the way the league has been structured this year and the timing means that it's very difficult for players like Johnqt to get this sorted in due course. This may well mean when Sentinels play their first game of the season against 100T, they may well require a substitute. Could be Curry, could be Tarik stepping in. Very much into your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. Just to say, it is April Fool's, so if you see tweets like this from Bleed, update on Yay, if I click this link, I'm probably going to get rickrolled. I'm almost certain that's what's going to happen, so I'm not going to click it. Maybe they've got something else cooked up. But yeah, this is how this works on this day, so just be careful. Just to mention as well, here from Fnatic, Dirk has been enjoying his time lately playing Clove, among others. But yesterday was a pretty big day for Finnish FPS players in general, because Alexi B, if you guys are watching the CS Major, won the Major, of course, his first Major championship, and just a great moment, all things considered. Now, Dirk, understandably, lots of reaction to this, right? As he said, kind of, talking to Alexi B and all this stuff. So excited for Durka and for Alexi B, and maybe this is going to be the key to Durka having a good redemption arc for the rest of the season, right? Because Fnatic, they had a great time last year. The end of the year, the World Championship did not go as they expected to. Didn't even qualify for Masters Madrid. Is it a downfall of Fnatic? Can they make a comeback? That is, of course, a big question mark. But Heretics, one of the other best teams right now, most certainly in EMEA, they are also struggling with visa issues, and this is where problems arise, potentially for Sentinels as well. The visa problems in esports are so frustrating, and it always seems to affect players at the worst possible time, and whenever you hear somebody say, well, it's going to get sorted in X amount of days or X amount of weeks, usually what happens is it takes longer than that, and that may not be the case here, but Woot, so Heretics player, Turkish player of course, has confirmed that he is not going to be able to play the first 2 weeks of the EMEA region. So, he won't be able to play due to an error in his visa. So, I don't know what the plan is here, because honestly, Heretics are kind of screwed over by this. They had a great time making it through the kickoff in EMEA, made it all the way through to the Masters Madrid tournament. They played quite well there, not up to the level I'm sure they would have hoped to play. They lost to Sentinels among others, but then they bowed out of the tournament before the playoffs. But what are they going to do, Heretics, right? Because they play Fnatic in 3 days. And that's a big first round game. Miniboo is not going to be playing here because he's got exams. Like, he's taking time out for school. The plan was that Patitech was going to step in, but now with Woot gone as well, then what do? Is like they had a 6th man, and yet that still wasn't even enough to deal with the circumstances. So, yeah, it seems like we're having a really tricky start to the season for a few teams here. Maybe Weber or Neil Zenio are going to step in. I mean, unless they have another option, surely one of their coaches has to step in and play. But certainly not the only team or players that are dealing potentially with visa problems as it stands. There's been lots of talk recently about some of the, Brazilian players as well, dealing with issues like, I think even, Sadak said that Loud, those guys are still waiting largely on their visas, so they won't be able to practice until they get, hopefully, to LA in a few days' time. I think it maybe comes down to the timing here. The fact that the kickoff event, and therefore Masters Madrid, was now, means that getting everything sorted within that window, for whatever reason, like that window of time of year, it seems around the start of April, is somewhat complicated based on the timings. I don't know, maybe it's because of last year and when they got their visa sorted in the first place, and therefore when it expires. But it just seems like now is particularly challenging for many of these teams to get these visas sorted for the players that are struggling with this. It's the case of many of the Brazilian players right now. It seems to be the case somewhat in EMEA as well, and it is certainly the case, it seems, for Johnqt. Getting visas to the United States of America is a massive challenge, and even for, well-financed, funded organizations with contacts, they still struggle to get this one done, and it seems like it's going to affect SEN. We'll discuss that in a second, but firstly, Cloud9, they actually confirmed their roster. Finally, we've known what it was for some time now. Rooney was on this team before, but it's pretty cool to see Moose as well join this roster. So is this, to me, going to make them a contender? Not as far as I'm concerned. But, we've got Vanity, they've got Zeppa, they've got Oxy, of course, is going to stay, and now Rooney and Moose rounding out the team. They play Lev at their first game of the season. That's going to be a big one, no doubt, because Lev, at least in terms of the scrumbucks we have seen over the last couple of weeks, aren't necessarily looking so good. I think that team could potentially be better than the old Cloud9 team. They got rid of Whippy, they got rid of Jake. I think they've made some good moves, but is it enough to me to be contenders, given how top-heavy the Americas seems to be? I'm not sure. Time will tell. Jake says as well, just want to compete. Please, like, let me play challenges. I'll go and join a team right now. And I feel like there's got to be some teams down there in challenges that Jake could potentially improve. So that's where he wants to go. But the thing is, in challenges, there aren't that many matches happening all of the time. Like, there's only a few games a week, really, across the entire challenger side. So the teams down in challenges probably don't get a great picture of how good they are for some time. Like, if you were playing 2, 3, 4 games a week down in challenges, which is probably what they should be, to be honest, then you'd get a picture quicker whether your team is good or bad, and therefore, you know, maybe they'd want to make a move for Jake slightly earlier than they could otherwise, right? So TenZ is giving his thoughts on ISO. We saw the other day as well his thoughts on Clove being significantly better than ISO as far as he understands it, and just be careful of April Fool's related stuff such as this that was put out just over the tick of April Fool's, so that's why that occurred. But speaking of TenZ, we've got to mention what his perspective is on the Sentinels roster going into the start of the season. They play in only a few days. We're only a couple of days away now from the start of, well, it's the start of April now. The matches start in less than a week. Sentinels want to play as the Masters champions and the best team in the world right now with their full strength roster. But that seems to be a bit of a stretch too far because, as TenZ says, Johnqt is struggling with some visa-related stuff. He was back in Morocco after the event in Madrid, and it seems like there is some either delay in his visa or the timing was always going to be like this, and the very earliest that he's going to be able to get back to the US to play is going to be basically on the day that they play their first match of the season. So realistically speaking, they will either, it seems, play the first game of the year against 100T with no practice, at least since Masters Madrid. That might still be good enough to win, or they'll play with a substitute.
Are you in scrim mode right now?
No. We're still waiting for one of our players' visas, and then afterwards, I think we're scrimming.
Don't you guys have to play a match soon, or?
Yeah, I think it was just like the schedule is kind of.
So you're going to be playing this match with essentially a little bit of a setback, I guess.
Yeah, either we're gonna play this match. We're either gonna play this match with like 0 practice from when we last played, or we're gonna play with our 6th. I think it's like the only options really, and I think it's kind of like rough. Just because, like, if you made a deep run in the last event, they didn't give you enough time to get everyone's, like, visas and stuff, like, in order. Especially, like, import players.
Wait, are you talking about a visa to play here in the States?
Yeah, in LA.
I mean, I guess it did take me to get visas, like, I don't know, 4 weeks, maybe.
I think it's pretty easy for Canadian, but, like, other countries can be kind of, like, tough for the States. Why can't Riot help? I mean, Riot obviously helps, but it's, at the end of the day, it's the United States of American government that decides whether you can get into the country or not, and if you could work in it or not. It's like literally a higher power than Riot even.
So if there's any player on the team that you don't want to have these problems, it's got to be Johnqt, right? Because he's the in-game leader for the team. He is the one individual that I would give the most credit to for turning the direction of this team around. Zellsis deserves credit as well. Kaplan deserves credit as well. Drew Spike, the other coach, and everything like this. But, I mean, Johnqt deserves the most plaudits, I would say, because he comes in, rookie player, in-game leader, leads them all the way to the top, and for so many reasons, massively impressive. And especially as your in-game leader, he's a pretty important member of the team. Sure, other people can call, even like Sassy was maybe going to do it at some point for Sentinels last year. Zellsis, he's a very vocal guy as well. Are Sentinels still a threat without Johnqt? Absolutely. They have incredibly talented players and some of the top players in the world, there's no doubt. But without Johnqt, that is a big loss. So what's going to happen here next? That is the feeling right now. Maybe Johnqt arrives in time, but whenever we talk about visa problems, which we do relatively often, it usually almost takes a bit longer than they expect. It's like incredibly rare that a visa situation will be resolved earlier than they think it will. It's usually later than they think it will. And if that occurs, then it's plausible that SEN might play the first couple of games of the season without Johnqt. In the long run, is this going to matter? I don't really think so, because you know what they're capable of with Johnqt with some good practice under their belt. We've all seen that, and sure, even if they lose a couple of series because they don't have him and they're not on their full strength roster, over time, they should still win enough series to qualify for the playoffs, make it to the playoffs in the Americas, you know, get top 3 there, qualify for Shanghai, qualify for the World Championship, all this type of stuff. But it's just not what they would have wanted, and it seems like they might have to make a call. Who's going to replace Johnqt? Is it going to be Curry, their technical 6th man, who of course you'd put your money money on, or is it going to be Tarik? Because Tarik has talked about this before, trying to find if he can technically be a Masters Madrid champion because, well, maybe he wasn't their substitute, but he was there in spirit and all this. So we'll see what SEN get up to over the coming days if this actually does happen. But SEN, of course, are in Group A here, Group Alpha. They play their first game on the 8th, so they've got a week effectively to get this sorted. But and then they play Lev then a few days later. Then it's MIBO on the 20th. So yeah, that's Sentinel's run over the coming weeks. These are the first games, although if you guys aren't familiar with them, if I click on Sentinels, we can see all of their upcoming games over the next few weeks. So, you know, ideally, there's no problem here. They'll get it resolved. But, you know, given the history that we know on visa stuff, that seems somewhat unclear. And probably it's affecting other teams as well. Loud in a similar boat, we believe, with their visa situations. They might be in a bit of a pickle as well. So the feeling is, at least what TenZ was saying, that maybe it's just a timing thing on the right game side or the way they've structured their league this year compared to last year that is inevitably inviting these complications. To get visas renewed in time and all this stuff, couple of scrimbucks to mention before we close out the video. From TenZ's stream last night, there was this spotted with Leaf and the G2 guys up 10-1 on Victor, Crashies, Marved of NRG. So maybe that new G2 change, of course, they made getting rid of Nets, surprisingly, you could argue, from the starting roster, and bringing in Icy, that's actually worked out in their favour so far, but still scrimbucks. And we know that NRG, they apparently just love getting trashed on in scrims, so, you know, that is one thing. But 100T, they are the team that plays Sentinels. Are 100T capable of beating Sentinels when both teams have full strength rosters? I think yes. Would I pick Sentinels to win that series 85-90% of the time? Yes, based on what we've seen recently. But I think 100T are capable with their roster of beating Sentinels with full strength teams. Are they capable of beating Sentinels without Johnqt? Absolutely yes. They might even be favourites to win that series in that scenario, but I do think 100T are a solid team, and their scrimbucks recently have shown some good promise. We actually see here some results against M80, they're up 10-7, against Pancake's team, they're up 8-3. So it looks like 100T are potentially playing rather well in the run-up to what is going to be a very interesting Sentinels grudge match series, especially if Johnqt isn't there. But very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.